What's up, guys? My name is Ian Yanez, and this is,
My name is Will Leguisaman.
and we're two truck insurance agents. We've been doing insurance sales for quite a while. Me personally, I think I started in this industry technically when I was 13 years old, uh, being a file clerk for my dad, who's the CEO of this company. And Will also has extensive sales experience, especially in the commercial industry space.
Yeah.
So we're starting this podcast. We want to feature a couple people in our industry. Our goal is to transfer the information that him and I know to regular truckers on the road, maybe even other insurance agents that started up an agency and they want to figure out this game. There's a lot of money to be made, but there's also a lot of mistakes that can be made that could be costly to not only yourself, but to the insured who are our truck drivers. Um, that
Yeah.
being said, we got two underwriters in the house. Underwriters are the people that look at your quote, right? So you send the information to Will and you say, here's my truck information, here's my driver information. Get me a quote. What does Will do with that, right? Will organizes that information, sends it out to market. And when we say send it out to market, that means we send it out to all the insurance companies that we have access to. And usually those insurance companies, if it's not Geico, Progressive, or CoverWheel, they have a live person looking at your file. They're looking at your driver file. They're looking at your truck. They're looking at all the inspections that they see on Safer, and they're
Right.
analyzing your account, and they're coming up with a price, right? So basically, the people that we have in here today are the people that come up
With the
with the
price.
price,
hmm
right?
And the
So
price is based on a lot of factors. Like a lot of times, you might think you have a perfect history, but you have a DUI. you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
so like
yeah.
it's these are the people who actually look at all of that. They put everything together and they say, okay, we're willing to approve you based on what you gave me, but this is the price because of this
Yeah, yeah, or
situation
speeding,
or
or
speeding, or you get this amazing price because you have been responsible the way you drive with your personal vehicle
mhm.
and with your truck as well
Yeah.
historically. So
And what's really cool thing about underwriters and having a live person actually look at your account is, let's take Progressive for example, one of the best insurance companies in the world. We represent them, we love them, um, but they will rate you based on your credit score, which is kind of crazy because you could be like an amazing truck driver, you can have like a perfect score, but like, what if you go to the truck dealership, you buy a $100,000 truck, your credit score just takes a hit for buying a $100,000 truck, and they did the hard inquiry at the dealership. Once you come to me, hey, I need a quote. Can you quote me with Progressive? Progressive is going to be able to see that hit, and they're going to rate you based on your current credit score.
right.
So that's a really another advantage of having an actual underwriter, like a
Yeah.
person look at the account. They can look at it differently, and they can factor in other things that could get you a good price.
Yeah, but just to piggyback on that comment, like they just don't rate you on your credit score. They rate you
Oh yeah,
based on what the agent inputted into the platform. So
100%.
if that agent is not an expert and he doesn't know exactly how to input the information, you might be misrated.
No,
And
yeah, for
that's why a
sure.
lot of the times you see that companies get canceled 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later by Progressive because somebody, an underwriter who actually knows how to read the entire application, goes in there and they're like, dude, this is wrong. This guy's sand and gravel.
Yeah.
Why is he classified as a general freight? So things like that is the type of value that you're gonna get today from people who know what they what they're doing, who actually know how to read the entire information and give you the best possible price. So
Yeah, and I think we could have probably a whole podcast, like a whole episode just on progressive misrating and Geico
for
misrating.
sure,
And
for
again, these
sure.
are fantastic companies that we use. Like we quote Geico and Progressive all the time. Unfortunately, there are people that are not here for the long run and they're in here for the short game. And that's another dangerous thing about being a trucker is you get solicited so much.
Yeah,
You get so many calls from random people trying to sell you insurance, sell you factoring, sell you dispatching, sell you safety.
yep,
But how do you know who's legit, right?
yeah,
I wouldn't be able to know who's legit.
yeah.
And then we're also calling people, so we are legit. So
Yeah.
I mean, it messes it up for us because we're doing the right thing and we're cold calling people and we're calling people and like some truck drivers are going to be affected by that. They're going
Yeah.
to be like, I don't know who this guy is.
You know how many times I had to send my PNC license?
Yeah.
Just so I'm like, bro, call the state.
Yeah, yeah. I'm legit, I promise.
Just call the state, like, like verify
Yeah.
who we are. Here's a link to our website. Here's, the look at the Google, look at everything, and just call around, call other truckers,
Yeah.
just to prove them because they've been scammed.
100%.
Like they sent money and the people disappeared. So it's important to do your due diligence. I feel like there's not a space online specifically directed to educating truckers especially in the insurance space.
Yeah.
And this is a whole ocean. It's very intricate. You have to kind of know how to go about it, and making a mistake could be costly. And literally, you could open up your business and you could be taken out of business just by making the wrong move. So you have to be very careful with that. And that's why we're going to make this podcast available for you guys. And we're going to bring value in essence straight from Southwestern Insurance here in Miami, Florida. So with that being said, I think it's time to bring in.
Yeah, let's bring in Julie and Sean, at least one of them, right? Let's bring them in here.
All right.
Julia, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about MHC as a whole, the products that you sell, Southwind and Bulldog. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yes. So my name is Julie Campbell. I'm the Chief Underwriting Officer at MHC MGA. We started MHC about 4 years ago, and we have grown exponentially. A lot of part thanks to Southwestern, and we appreciate them having us on and talking about what we can do to help you, get better rates and stuff. So with MHC, we have 2 risk retention groups that we work for, and a Southwind Risk Retention Group and Bulldog National Risk Retention Group. And I guess there's a lot of a lot of people don't understand what a risk retention group is.
Yeah, good. I'm glad that you're going to explain that because I was going to say, I'm sure there's some people that are confused.
So, your normal carrier that you think of when you're getting insurance is Progressive, the Geico, that kind of thing. But, there's a lot of situations where, your insured might not fit into that category due to it being a brand new venture, and there's just no history for anyone to look at to really just to determine like a good rate for them. And then also, there's some accounts that have had like a shock loss, or have had a big loss and have had problems with their safety scores, and they're starting to work on them, get better at them, and they just need a chance to redeem themselves and get back. So a risk retention group basically it's an insurance company, but it's actually owned by all the insured. So all the if you're a part of the risk retention group, you own part. You're like a part owner of the. You're all sharing the risk, and the purpose of it is to to be able to write stuff that other companies are going to look at and not want to write it.
Yeah. But risk retention groups also have reinsurance,
yes,
right?
Yes. And so Bulldog, we have reinsurance. So
and they're A-rated reinsurance most of the time, right?
Yes,
at least in the Bulldog situation.
Yeah, Bulldog has AmTrust, who's the reinsurer, and they're A-rated.
Which is also one of the biggest, insurance companies in the world.
Yes.
And
yes.
They also reinsure Wesco, which is an A-rated company. It's a big financial institution, so a lot of backing there.
Yes, it is a lot of backing. And there's plenty of we only, like with the risk retention groups, we only write the amount that we can. Like basically, like it's a 2-to-1. Like for the surplus is 2-to-1. So we're not writing, more than we can handle. And so we make sure that the carrier is healthy. And that back into underwriting, that's our job, is to, when we receive the submission from the agent, we get it into the system, and then we look at, first off, we're looking at your MVR. How long have you been, how much CDL experience do you have? And, one of the advantages with the risk retention group is we do allow like 1 year CDL experience. And
Yeah,
that's good in the industry because a lot of
definitely.
carriers definitely require at least 2 years. So we're able to help that way. And then also we look at, we're aware that people, have violations and stuff. And so that's not going to completely like knock you out of being able to get a quote unless you have, a major violation. But
Well, you mentioned something that I think is like really important. I think that we should hone in on is that you guys protect the carrier, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of the nuances of risk retention groups, or you might hear that, oh, a broker doesn't, why is my broker accepting a risk retention group? Is because risk retention groups historically in the past have not been run correctly.
Correct.
And you mentioned something about a two to one ratio on the reinsurance. I think we were speaking about recently at lunch or at dinner about this company that had like a 1 to 5 ratio, right?
Yeah, they're
So
writing 5 to 1.
yeah, so 5 to 1 is like what? Like every $1 million in premium um is like backed up until like 5 million, or how does that work? Like explain that to me. So
All right. Well, so basically, like, so the way that like it works, so 2 to 1, it means that we have, let's say, right now we have, 50 million in surplus.
like reserves, like 50 million in the bank,
Yes,
that like if something happens, you have 50 million to pay
to
out
pay all the
claims.
claims.
Yeah.
Yes, and so we can write. So 2 to 1 means that we can write 25 million.
So you could write 25 million. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these other carriers, what they're doing is they have 50 million in the bank, and these other RRGs, a lot of them are, and they're writing 5 to 1. So they're writing,
Yeah, like 500 million or
yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
is.
and so like, and they don't have them like the capital to be able to pay for claims.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of a risk retention group. Is there's been a little bit of negative connotation towards them because a lot of them have failed because they don't do what they're not doing
Yeah,
what they're
then
supposed to do. They're
and they're giving out rates like super cheap. They're
yes,
doing like poor underwriting. I
yes,
know. I remember when I got into this industry, there was like a huge risk retention group like out of California. I don't remember who it was, but they went belly up.
yes,
And then I remember like back in the day when I was selling insurance, like I had like a lot of people calling me, like especially people from California, like, oh, I don't know, my insurance company went out of business, and like I
yeah,
don't know what's going on, and like,
yeah,
and that was like all new to me, and then that's when I really started selling insurance, like personally having a personal one-on-one relationship with people coming from the MGA underwriting side.
yeah,
So from what I understood, there was like kind of like a worry because uh, their policies were financed,
hmm,
so they still owed the money to the finance company, even though the risk retention group was out of business. And B, there was an assumed liability in like, okay, like there's like, I don't know, 30, $50 million in open claims now, because the way the risk retention group operates, these truck drivers are part owners of this business, and they're kind of like on the hook for all these claims, right?
yeah,
And that's where it gets dangerous. And that's why probably there's a lot of people who are scared of risk retention groups and scared of like those things could happen.
yes,
But what I find like absolutely phenomenal working with you guys, and I know the guy in charge, Michael, he's like a savant with this type of
yes,
stuff, right?
yes,
And like my dad's been in this industry for 40 years, and I know he vetted you guys pretty well, asked a lot of questions.
hmm,
My dad's constantly talking to Michael
yes,
about the financials of the company and stuff
yes,
like that, because I mean, let's say you guys do go belly up, which I don't think it would. Knock on wood. I don't think it's ever going to happen because you guys are really run like a super tight ship.
yeah,
But that would reflect badly on us as the
yes,
agent, us selling a product that has the potential of blowing up in your face, right? Luckily with you guys, that's like the furthest thing from it.
yeah,
I know that you guys, especially the Southwind paper, is Demotech rated, A rated, so
yep,
it's A rated paper, so it's an A rated risk retention group. A lot of your brokers are going to be asking for, oh, is it A rated? Is A rated? Yes, it is A
yeah,
rated. And the way that you get ratings in the insurance arena is by showing financial reports that you have enough money in the bank
yeah.
to pay out claims if anything happens, right? So
And
that's
and all the financial like yearly financial statements are all public knowledge, so anyone can look at them and see, you know, how much money we have and
yeah,
in a surplus and stuff. Um, but I mean that like you know, insurance, like, I mean, it's, you know, obviously is about taking risk and stuff, but, I mean, it can happen to a normal, you know, like in Florida, y'all have had millions of, I mean, not millions, but you've had
Yeah, yeah.
numerous,
Insurance companies admitted, yeah,
yeah, like homeowners insurance companies, carriers go under because of hurricanes and stuff. So,
yeah,
um, you know, and there's, I mean, there's always or some type of risk with, and you know, with insurance and any even like, I mean, even Progressive and stuff. I mean, I know they have a bunch of money, but you know,
yeah,
there's always, but you know, with the way that is these carriers are run, we won't that's not going to happen, and we're
yeah.
doing a good job. And
Claims handling is also a big part of that, right?
mm-hmm,
So, like, I know a big issue is like if you don't have the right TPA,
yes,
so that's like a third party admin. So just for the people that don't know, those are the
yeah,
people that handle the claims on your behalf. If you don't have a good claims team or a good claims adjuster and you're paying out claims on like, you know, scammers or people
yeah,
that get in front of your truck and slam the brakes and all that stuff, and you don't have like cameras in your car, in your truck and stuff like that, like all that stuff starts to pile up, right?
yes,
And you guys have a phenomenal TPA.
yes, yes.
They're the same people that do Prime,
Prime, yeah.
right? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's CDA claims direct access. It's Prime Insurance. They did a TPA, and so they do it, and they do a phenomenal job. They get to the claims, they get to the claims quick and try to close them out as soon as possible, so that there's not a lot of excess reserves. And they're definitely willing to. They're not scared to fight for you. They will, you know, they'll go through lawsuits and everything just to get everything settled to be able to pay the claims and stuff. So that's good, and get it done quickly.
Yeah, and Prime is an A-rated paper as well, right?
Yep.
They're an A-rated company. A lot of people are familiar with Prime because Prime will take on kind of like the hairy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what has always been or what has always stood out about Prime is the way that they handle claims.
Yes.
And they have a one-on-one personal relationship with all their insureds, and they don't want to pay out a claim for no reason. So
Yes.
they're very aggressive. They have a lot of in-house attorneys.
Very.
They send people out to the scene of the accident. So again, you have A-rated reinsurance companies backing your paper. You have A-rated,
Yeah.
basically A-rated TPAs, right?
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
work with A-rated carriers. One like Prime, which is like again industry. Like if you know this industry, the people that fight claims the most aggressively is going to be Prime,
Yes.
and they're gonna represent you super well. So you guys kind of have like all the pieces of the puzzle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And we
and
have one of the best captain managers in the country.
yeah, for sure.
They're in the top 10 in the whole country. So
Yeah, so I mean,
awesome.
this is a risk retention group, but it's basically running like an A-rated
Yes.
admitted carrier in a
Yes.
sense.
It is.
So this is the closest you could get
Yeah.
to being an A-rated admitted carrier within the risk retention group world, right?
Yeah. I mean, the only like big difference with the risk retention group and another carrier is it's not backed by the insurance solvency. Like,
Yeah.
so that's where people get a little scared. So if something did happen, then there's no guaranteed fund that could come in and help you if something
Yeah.
were to happen.
Bail you out,
Yes.
the
And so
government.
that is what scares some people. But,
Yeah.
like I said, that's not an issue that we have. And we're not going to let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a truck driver, I mean, not just because I sell your product, but and again, I have a thorough understanding
Yeah.
of how this works, and again, with my dad doing this for years,
Yeah.
I worked myself on like the MGA side, and I was an underwriter and all that stuff, and like, I mean, if I was a truck driver and I had this knowledge, and I had to weigh out my options and saying, well, I could pay $34,000 for my truck with Progressive because it's an admitted A-rated carrier, or I could pay $16,000 with Southwind, who's
Yeah.
an A-rated RRG, and you're
Yes.
weighing out
Yes.
like the factors. You're like, 16,000 is a hell of a value,
Yes.
right? You have again, I'm gonna repeat it, a hell of a claims paying TPA, and then you have backed by A-rated reinsurance, right? So if anything happens, there's money in the bank to pay out all the claims. God forbid 10, 20 truck drivers have fatalities on one
Yeah.
day. You guys can pay $1 million on all those.
Yes.
So it's like, and that's never going to happen, right?
No.
That's like super
Yeah.
out of the norm. So like you can rest assured that you're going to be able to be on the road. You're going to be insured. You're not going to have any issues with you guys. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that about you guys.
Yeah, thanks. And I guess that the other thing I want to talk about would be the underwriting process, which that is a little different, like y'all mentioned earlier. Um, every single submission that you send in goes to a live person. It goes to one of our underwriters for review. And we're looking at all the factors, and we're not just it's not a computer that's you put it if this happens then you're out, or if this happens and you're getting charged this. So we are looking at everything. We're looking at your experience. We're looking at your MVR. We're looking at what you're hauling. We're looking at your your loss history. And we have something called CAB, which is the Central Analysis Bureau, which basically for anytime the insureds go through an inspection or get pulled over, like all that information goes into CAB, and we can see that. So we can see your safety scores and how things are going. And we're able to take all that information and determine like what the best price is for your risk. And that we have, that's an advantage of having actually a live person looking at it
Yeah.
as opposed to a computer. Because it, like y'all mentioned earlier, an agent can misrate something, and then a month down the road they're canceling you because it wasn't right, or they're charging you,
A lot of money.
$10,000 more, and you're like, what's going
Yeah,
on?
sometimes it's like $40,000 more.
So we, once you get the price, like once we go through the file, and
Yeah, the price is the price.
Price is the price. Price
Yeah.
isn't changing until possibly renewal, and and we've had a good, very high renewal rate, and the insureds like staying with us, and that's really positive for an RRG.
Oh yeah, even my own clients. Again, I have a substantially like a good book of business with you guys,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
like all my insureds, like they're happy with the way that claims are paid out. They're happy with the service that they receive. They've never had any issues getting claims paid. They're happy with the price, which is also very important. Like you want to pay a good price.
Yes.
It's not going to be the cheapest thing in the world because we're not giving it out.
Yeah.
And again, like maybe if you guys didn't have a A-rated reinsurance company backing some of your paper, or if you guys didn't have an amazing TPA, like then you can charge cheaper, right? But like then where's the value in that, right? So there's a substantially higher value associated with selling Southwind and selling Bulldog because you guys are the ones behind it. And it's still a competitive price. Again,
Yes, it is.
I had mentioned earlier that you could buy a brand new truck, get dinged on your score. You go to get insurance with Progressive, and it's $34,000, and you could be a perfect driver with a brand new truck. Your safety scores are amazing, but because they check the credit score, you're getting dinged on that. You guys don't take that into consideration.
No.
You truly look at the driver. You look at the equipment. And you say, "Hey, this is brand new equipment. This is a phenomenal driver. This guy's been doing this for years.
Yeah.
We're gonna give him a badass rate,
Yes.
right?"
Yes.
And that's again an advantage. And even there's been cases where, let's say there's an accident,
Yeah.
right? Some insurance companies see an accident, they're like, "Oh, well, we don't want people with accidents."
Yeah.
You guys come to us and you ask, like, "What happened in this accident?
Yes.
Could it have been avoided?
Yes.
Was it a bad driver that you let go?
Yeah.
Was it maybe not even their fault, right?"
Yeah.
And we go through all of that, and something that everybody else rejects could be something that you guys are willing to take the risk on and give this trucker an opportunity to keep working and make money for his family, right?
100%. And I guess another thing I would say is, as far as like the risk retention group, is like we take it personally, like because it's our, as underwriters, like we are determining the pricing, and we have to make sure that everything's priced accordingly, so that so that there is money there to pay your claims and stuff. But like it's our livelihood too. So we're gonna make sure that we do everything that we can to make sure that the carrier stays healthy and has a lot of money to pay claims, because I mean like without the carrier, like I don't have a job, you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
I need my job.
And we
And
need you in the marketplace,
yes,
right? Because,
yes,
I mean, there are people, there's some agents, again, they're not in it for the long run. They'll send you like garbage business.
yeah,
And don't get me wrong. I mean, we get people that are in really bad shape,
yeah,
but everybody has a home,
yes,
right? And
yes,
when you come to somebody like Southwestern, who we are like true trucking insurance experts, like we know what home you belong in,
yeah,
right?
yes,
And we ourselves want to protect you.
yes,
We don't want to give you bad business, or we don't want to give you people who have 4 or 5 unreported trucks and all that shady stuff that goes within this industry.
yes, yes.
Um, there are homes for people like that.
Oh yeah,
Luckily, we have like, I don't know, I can't even 50, 100 carriers that we represent
yeah,
because we've been doing this for
yeah,
so long.
yeah,
Um, and we like to hand select certain clientele for you, and just like we hand selected for other people that
yeah,
they're a better fit for that program. So
yes,
we also want to protect the market, right?
yes,
Because we don't want you to say like, oh, Southwestern, all you give us is like people with DUI. Like,
yeah,
yeah, there are people out there with DUI. There are
yeah,
truck drivers who have made mistakes, but there's a home for that truck driver, right? There's a
yeah,
home, there's a place, there's an insurance company that's going to give them a fair rate where, yeah, they made a mistake in the past, but they're going to be able to work and provide for their family. It's not going to be Southwind,
yeah,
but it's going to be a different insurance carrier that's going to
yes,
help them, like, keep the lights on at home.
yeah, for sure.
So thank you for coming here.
Yeah,
I
thanks for
appreciate
having
you
us.
talking to us. I mean, Southwestern and MHC have like a really strong connection.
Yes,
And another thing, again, that I can mention is that like we're able to talk to each other. And like
yeah,
you and I are personally
yeah,
friends with Sean.
yeah,
We're also friends. So it's not
yes,
like we're talking to a robot.
yeah.
And we really appreciate everything that you guys do for us.
Yeah. Thank you
So
for
thank you.
having us. We appreciate everything y'all do for us. And
Yeah, definitely. Let's see if we can bring Sean on here.
yeah.
Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm Sean. I work for MHC MGA. Um, thanks Ian for having me here. I went to school at Carolina.
Wait,
About
University of South Carolina?
Yep, University of South
Is that the
Carolina.
Gamecocks?
Gamecocks. Yep.
Okay, I
Go
love that team.
Gamecocks.
Yeah.
Um, and I've been in the industry for 5 years now. I met Julie when I was an intern. And I've been around MHC since day one.
Nice.
I was, I guess, technically employee number 2 behind Julie. So
You
we
have
got
some
to see it grow.
experience.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
So I know, I mean, Sean's my underwriter, right? So like
yeah.
you and I, we work together a lot with my assistant Carla, and I mean, I have, I think, a phenomenal relationship with Sean, and again, we were talking about with Julie that a lot of the times when we submit stuff out to market, if it's Geico, Progressive, Cover Whale, or whatnot, like all these online portals, it's a machine that's doing the underwriting,
hmm
right? But you're the one looking at all my accounts.
Right.
So run me on like not a day to day, but like let's say you get a submission from me. What is it that you're looking at? Like
Mhm.
what are your steps? Like how do you get to a price? What is it that you do?
So I think the couple of most important things that we look at is first the driver MVRs.
Okay.
So we take into effect, if you're a driver with good experience and good driver history, you don't have a lot of violations. That's the number one factor that we're looking at. Number two would be your loss history.
Okay.
So you got a guy that's been in business for 5 years, no losses. That's the kind of ideal insured. Obviously in the risk retention group space, as you guys were talking on earlier, it can be a market for people that are a little distressed. But I think what's cool about our program is that, and thanks to you guys as well, is that we've found a lot of good accounts that necessarily wouldn't in the past have fit into the RRG space.
Yeah.
And that has helped keep our company healthy and rolling, and hopefully to continue for many years down the road.
Yeah.
And I think the third most important thing that we look at is your safety inspections and your
Okay.
maintenance history. So we have some tools that we utilize that can show us, every single time your truck goes through a weigh station or a DOT inspection, they're checking things like brakes, tire tread, how does the truck look inside, any kind of maintenance. Do you have your fire extinguisher on hand? And those things all those factors we take together, and that's where we arrive at the price.
Yeah, and those are definitely good factors to look at. I know specifically, a lot of people say like, oh, what does the fire extinguisher have to do with, my insurance price? What is the tire tread? Tires are expensive, and maybe I have one or two lights out, but it's not all my lights.
Right.
I've learned like from experience, and I'm sure that you can agree, it's not really that those things are affecting you as a driver. Having your lights and brakes and tires are obviously important, but the most important aspect of that, or the aspect that I've seen most insurance companies and the RRGs care about when they're doing their underwriting processes, what they can defend in court,
Right.
right? So these lawyers are like super smart. They figured out ways to win over juries with this type of information, right? So what happens is, um, you have a scenario where there's an accident and the attorney will argue like, oh, well, if he had brand new tires, he would have been able to stop in time and not hit that person and not caused all this damage. So you have to have a properly documented file where you could present to our attorneys, the people, defending our truck drivers, and say, hey, look, he did have his tires in check, right? He did have a fire extinguisher in his truck. He did have all these aspects, right? This was a responsible insured,
Right.
right? So it really boils down to you guys defending this stuff in court. And if someone has a really bad safety score, it is like almost a slam dunk for an attorney to come in
Right.
and say, well, ABC Trucking had these horrible scores, and they were on the road, and this is why they killed somebody, and this is why they had this accident, and this person should have never been here, and the insurance company has to pay this person $1 million because this is a bad truck driver, right? So those are things that you need to analyze and say, there's a sense of accountability that truck drivers need to have, right? This
Right.
is their business. These aspects of their business need to be kept in check.
Right.
Which is, again, why safety scores are also so important in
Right.
your underwriting process, right? Is that correct?
Yes, and to touch on what you were saying, I think it's really important too. We don't expect truck drivers to be perfect. Nobody is perfect.
Of course.
Even the best truck drivers in the business, they're going to get dinged on little violations here and there. But what those attorneys, what they're looking for is that pattern. Every time that they're stopped, do they have 6 violations on their truck for safety reasons, or are they going over their hours of service? And that's where the attorneys are going to hit home is when they see that pattern of, do you really care and take care of your business as well as you should, versus a guy who's taking that little extra time to do some vehicle maintenance here and there, the guy who's going to spend a little extra to get his tires replaced just a little bit sooner than maybe someone else who's not as in tune with his own business. And that's really important, is keeping up that safety and vehicle maintenance as well.
Yeah, that's a super important aspect. And then obviously the MVRs, you guys do accept drivers with 1 year CDL experience, which is a huge help in the industry because there's a shortage of drivers, right?
Right.
And a lot of people are here, they want to work, and they just don't have the CDL experience that they need just yet, or it could be that they came from another country.
Right.
And they maybe have 20, 30 years in another country, which honestly is probably even harder to drive in those countries, right? Like, how like there's mountains with like little roads and that like they're turning their trucks in, like that takes a lot of skill. So it takes a lot of skill to be a truck driver, number one.
Yes.
And sometimes these truck drivers have the skill, but they don't have the CDL experience in the United States. And you guys take that into consideration when underwriting people, right? So I know a lot of my insureds are like, hey, do you accept like CDL drivers with less than 2 years? And I said, yeah, I have a market for that, right? And that helps them like hire drivers, hire owner operators. It helps them grow their business. So the fact that you guys do that is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think what's important about that is, like you said, these guys, they come here and like you touched on earlier with Progressive and Geico, they don't have a real underwriter who's touching the account originally. So, a computer is going to spit out a number that is astronomically high for these guys that are just starting out. They, like you said, they might have had 20 years experience in another country and they come here, they've been driving for a year, and the number they might get from a computer is going to be so high that they're going to be just barely scraping it by. And what our space and our niche allows us to do is to be competitive for these guys, so we can allow them to make a living, but also give them, good coverage as well.
Yeah, that's really important. And again, you guys have like really helped shift the market and given opportunities to truck drivers that otherwise would not be able to be in the business, right? Sometimes insurance is so expensive for them that they can't even like do this livelihood anymore. It
Right.
doesn't make sense for them, and they have to like be a mechanic, or they have to be a painter, or they have to do other stuff when their real true profession is being a truck driver.
Right.
Um, and that's like really what I love about MHC and like what you guys bring to the table is like you look at you look at the insured as a whole, and you look at the person, and you look at the truck driver, you look at his equipment and his experience, and then you give a fair price based on that.
Right.
Which is again huge. And you know, you and I have a relationship, so like if anyone has like some sort of sketchy, not sketchy, but like they have some misunderstood aspect to
Right.
their account, like let's say an accident that happened or an inspection that happened that needs an extra like explanation or some details. You've always been open to listening to me and taking that into consideration with price and,
Right.
and being able to provide a quote to someone who otherwise would have been doomed without you guys,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think that's really important for us as well, is to be able to, everyone has a story. Whether it's true or not, that's where we get to decide and to talk it through. And I think what happens a lot of times is, sometimes the guys have a shock loss, or they have one really bad year, and they're looking for relief. And that's where we can provide another option for them.
Yeah, so again, that's one of the things that you mentioned, like during your underwriting process, that you look at loss runs, right? And yeah, ideally you want a super clean guy for 5 years, but there's this thing that you mentioned of a shock loss, right? You can be a phenomenal driver, you can have great safety scores, but just that's what insurance is for accidents that
Right.
are that nobody can like know is coming,
Mhm.
right? And there could be a shock loss where you have $1 million loss, a fatality, and sometimes as a truck driver, you're thinking like, I'm never gonna be able to work again.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Especially the ones that understand about like loss runs and like they have $1 million claim, but if all they have is $1 million claim in the last 3 to 5 years, I mean that's an accident. That's
Yeah.
what insurance is supposed to pay for, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's our industry for some reason try to shy away from people like that, but that doesn't make any sense. Like that's what you're paying for, is for when you do have an accident, the insurance company comes in and takes care of you, but that shouldn't come at a cost of you're never going to be able to get insurance again.
Right. Or to be able to make any money in your business.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I think it's really important too that when you have a big loss, looking at the facts of the loss, because like you said earlier, these attorneys, they're pushing for $1 million every single time. You can bump into someone in the back and they're going to say, you owe me $1 million. Whether there's any injuries or someone went to the hospital or anything, these attorneys, they want the biggest payday for themselves, so they're always pushing for as much as possible. And that's where, we reviewed the police reports on some of these accidents, that $1 million, and you look at it and you say, there's just no way that this should have been $1 million claim. And that's where we can come in to help these insureds to make sure that they not only can make money, but that they can continue their profession. Like you said, they're true truck drivers at heart. They don't want to do something else. These guys want to drive. And we, living in our society specifically, truck drivers are the backbone of what we do, of
Yeah.
logistics and everything in America. Freight moving it starts at the heart with the truck drivers. And so to make sure we can take care of these guys first and foremost and give them a competitive option is our number one goal.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's really great that you guys see it that way. I mean, a lot of people, again, and we're gonna talk about it on the show pretty often, is like the importance of the truck driver and how they really run our economy and how they help fuel like our economic state as a country. They're the ones that literally will put food on our tables. Without truck drivers, we're not gonna have the food that we eat,
right.
right? Unless we're like all locally sourced, which that's not gonna happen anytime
Yep.
soon. Um, but everything that you're looking at, your phone, the table, the seat that you're sitting on, everything is there most likely because of a truck driver that brought it to that store or to Amazon warehouse or to whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So they help run our economy, and then they sacrifice time away from their family, right? I mean, you and I, we get to go home after 6 o'clock, and I get to see my daughter, my wife. You get to see your brother and your girlfriend, and they don't have that same luxury. They're
Right.
sacrificing time away from their family so that they could work and provide. And that's not always an easy life,
No,
right?
no.
And sometimes this industry kind of like doesn't treat them fairly and doesn't give them the respect that they deserve, because they're making a huge sacrifice for us to have the
Right.
luxuries that we have, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we need to take that into consideration when coming up with a price for them, or instead of declining their account, like let's take a second look, like how can we help this guy
Hmm.
out so he's not like out of business, so he doesn't have to do another job, so he could do
Right.
what he's meant to do. So I mean, I love that. I love that aspect. Um, how does it feel being an underwriter? Like, do you like get any joy out of underwriting, or like I know I was an underwriter at a certain point, and like I know I came like got a little bored, but then there's like a value that you find in underwriting,
Yeah.
that like a self fulfillment that you feel
Yeah.
when you close a deal or you help get a price. Or tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. First and foremost, I really love my job. I love working with you guys, especially. And I think what I really like to do is to provide another option for someone who, like you said, is a little distressed and might need some help. And I do take pride in that, in the fact that we can offer something else to allow the truck drivers to continue working and to make money, and to put food on the table for their families. Because, like you said, they're people just like everybody else, and they sacrifice more than a lot of people really truly understand, so that we can have all the luxuries that we have. And like you said, some of these guys are out on the road 6, 7 days at a time. They don't get to see their family. They're not sleeping in a luxurious hotel.
Hmm.
They're not eating at the nicest restaurants. Like, they're doing everything they can.
Or the nicest showers either.
No, or they're showering in
Yeah.
convenience stores and gas stations around the country.
Yeah.
And especially with like the Amazon guys, how
Hmm.
many people in America utilize Amazon every single day, so
Yeah.
that a package is on their front door the next day? To put that in perspective, some truck driver might have driven 12 hours the night before with your package on, to get to the warehouse, to get to the distribution center, to make sure it's in front of your door the next day.
Yeah, and honing in on Amazon, let's talk about how you guys do Amazon all day, right? Like
Yes.
Amazon doesn't have an issue with risk retention groups or Southwind, so
No.
I mean, we do a lot of Amazon guys with you, right? You
Yeah,
would say you do a lot of Amazon, or
I'd say almost the majority of our long haul guys are Amazon these days. Yeah.
yeah,
And touching with some of these brokers, like you were talking earlier with Julie, they don't want to accept risk retention groups. But I think what we found recently is that, due to our success and our financial stability, is that a lot of these bigger brokers have begun to kind of, roll back their, I don't know how to describe
their agenda, right?
yes,
Their
right.
agenda on not accepting risk retention groups,
Right, and their feeling of, no, we don't really want to touch that, or
Yeah.
we've seen what happened in the past, and so we are working to fix that thought process and that bad taste in their
Yeah,
mouth.
and you're educating them, right? Like I know,
Right.
like when we first started working together, JB Hunt didn't accept you guys, right?
Right.
And I believe Michael had a call with some of the people in charge of JB Hunt
Mhm.
and their risk team, and like basically showed them the financials and like, dude, we're not like your one in the mill
Mhm.
risk retention group. We're super legit. Here are our financials. This is all the money that we got in the bank to pay out claims.
Right.
And then I know for a fact now, JB Hunt has no issue
Nope.
accepting Southwind,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, again, another advantage. Like typically, what I combat a lot on a daily basis is like when I'm selling Southwind or I'm selling Bulldog. I'll have another agent competing with me, chirping in the ear of the insured, saying, "Oh, that's a risk retention group. You're not going to be able to get any loads. Like
Mhm.
you can't get any loads." But that's not true.
Right.
They're only telling them that because they don't want to lose the business, right?
Right.
And sometimes the insured has to weigh out like, oh, man, do I really have to pay $25,000 for my truck for me to be able to run, or can I really do it with Ian for 16, 17,000 for my truck and like be able to make a living? And like
Right.
I'll tell you flat out right now, 110% you will be able to book loads. I would say 90, and I'm going to be conservative. 95% of the brokers out there are accepting risk retention groups, and more specifically Southwind, right?
Right.
Because again, a lot of people are becoming familiar with your product. A lot of brokers are understanding that Southwind and Bulldog are not your typical risk retention groups. They are backed by financial institution. They are going to
Mhm.
pay claims. You guys are super solid. So nobody should have issue booking loads. Me personally, I think I've sold, I don't know, anywhere between 3 and 500 accounts,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
With you guys, on a yearly basis, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Maybe in the beginning I had some complaints, but this past year, I've gotten zero people telling me that they can't book loads.
Yeah, and I think our renewal rate speaks to that as well.
Yeah.
Our renewal rate is almost 50%, which is unheard of in the RRG space. And I think a big part of that is because the brokers have begun taking us into consideration, saying, "Oh, this is a very legit insurance company. We need to open up our doors to allow those guys who have that to drive for us and to take our loads and to haul our freight." And
Yeah.
like you said, in the last year, at the very beginning when we first started, it was a little tough to
Yeah.
get people to open up to us, but now we're rocking and rolling, and
Yeah,
most
100%.
major brokers, oh, I would say almost every single major broker accepts us at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've tried to put up like a list like recently because
Yeah.
against we want to have transparency with our insureds, right? We want
Hmm.
to say like, hey, we know for a fact this company doesn't accept risk retention groups, whether it's Southwind or whether it's whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
But there's also brokers that don't accept Progressive.
Right.
Did you know that? Like, there's brokers out there that will give our insureds a hard time accepting Progressive, which is like the largest insurance company in the United States.
Yeah.
They have all the money, and yet they have, certain wording in their contracts where they don't allow certain things that are like never going to happen, 1 in a million chance,
Hmm.
but because that 1 in a million chance being there, they're not going to accept Progressive,
Right.
which is insane, right? So I think our job as agents, our job as underwriters, our job as truck drivers and brokers and dispatchers is to really understand the insurance company you have, what it covers, in what cases does it cover this type of stuff, um, and educating people, like really educating the public, and understanding, like, dude, nothing's gonna happen. There could be
Right.
an accident; it's gonna get paid, right?
Right. Right.
So that's huge.
And then speaking on accidents getting paid, our claims TPA. So we have what's called a third party administrator, which means that our insurance company doesn't necessarily handle the claims in house. We pay another company to go out and handle these claims. And what's great about our third party administrator is they're fighting as hard as they can for the trucker
Hmm.
to make sure that that claim doesn't blow up out of control. And so their number one goal is to close that claim as quickly as possible for the least amount of financial burden on the trucker, because if you let a claim fester for a year or two, an easy $10,000-$15,000 claim could turn into a $50,000-$75,000 claim, where
100%.
now a company is going to look at that and say, oh, well, this $15,000 claim has become 75,000. We can't write this account anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to have a claims TPA who fights for the trucker as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I know that for a fact. And we work with Prime. We've sold Prime policies. I've had a couple people insured with Prime, and I know that their claims fighting team is super aggressive.
Hmm.
Um, I just recently sold a pretty big account,
Yeah.
and they have about 300 trucks. And when I was approaching them about your product, there was a concern for there being a risk retention group. But as soon as I mentioned, like, oh, by the way, Prime handles their claims, they're like, what? Prime handles their claims?
Yeah.
And they were on board, right? And
Yeah.
these are like really knowledgeable truckers. This trucking company has been around for years. They have like a whole safety department, risk analyzing group, and like they came from a captive, so they had a lot of people like in their facility, like employed by them, going out and paying claims and resolving claims on behalf of the captive program that they were in. And they said, because they were with Prime before in the past, that their claims team is phenomenal, which it really is.
Yeah.
And that's added value. I was speaking to Julie about that. It's like, you guys aren't going to be the cheapest price in the world, but it's like extremely affordable,
Hmm.
and the value is insanely high.
Right.
Right.
And we can bring you peace at night when you lay your head down on your pillow, that
Yeah.
if something is to happen, your claim isn't going to be denied.
Yeah.
We make sure that, like I said, we fight for the truckers, and the whole the whole point of our company is to pay claims,
Yeah.
right? That's why insurance exists. It's because when you have that one little nick or accident, we're there to help make your company whole and fix that for you, so that you don't have to come out of pocket $30,000+ or
Yeah.
whatever it ends up being.
And it doesn't put you out of business, right? And you guys
Right.
take that into consideration even on renewal. You
Right.
know, you can be like, hey, look, like you had your accident, but you reported it right away, which is another important aspect of this is like that we have to educate people. A lot of truck drivers get scared, and they're like, I don't know, I just have an accident, and they'll even text me or call me like, dude, I just got an accident, and like, should I report it? And I was like, yeah, bro, report it. Like, you're good. Like, this is what insurance is for. You can report your accidents and like not have to worry about not being renewed or not like being able to find a quote the next year that they're
Right.
gonna cancel you. Like, we want the actual like truth. We want and it helps the insurance company. It helps the claims company resolve the claim for a reasonable price if you report it early.
Right. And it's to get it resolved as quickly as possible, like we talked about earlier, so it doesn't fester for a long time and end up being a much larger claim than it should have been.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And that's typically what happens is you'll wait a week, 2 week, or like 2 weeks to report this claim, and then a plaintiff attorney is already sending you a letter in the mail saying, hey, you know, this accident occurred, and they're sending the guy that you hit to the medical facility to get injections and fix his neck and like all this stuff, and that's when the claim starts to build, right?
Right.
Whereas if you tackle it right away, a freaking TPA as awesome as Prime goes in there and they're like, hey, look, these are the damages. He just scratched your door. Let's
Yeah.
pay to get you a new door.
Yeah.
Right? And we pay to get a new door, and that's it. We're done. Right? But if you let that thing fester and you let it take its course, this guy's gonna have a bunch of attorneys calling him and oh, does your back hurt, or
Right.
have you had a loss in vision, and like that's kind of what's killing the insurance industry is that type of unethical behavior.
Right.
And we can nip that at the bud by reporting your claims immediately.
And another thing that we, like we talked on earlier, reporting your claims as quickly as possible, that goes a long way with the trust that we have with the trucker as well. So the quicker you report your claim, the more likely we are when we look at you for renewal to say, look, this guy, he had an accident, but he immediately told us about it. And so that goes a long way for us to build
Yeah.
trust with the insureds as well.
Yeah, even if it's a minor accident, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, even if it's a minor accident, a lot of people say like, "Oh, it's just a scratch on the door." Like, I'll just like talk to the guy and like we'll get it resolved between him and I. Like, that sounds like a good idea in the perfect world, but if there's no like release form that's signed, if there's no proper documentation that you took care of that issue, that guy can still get a lawyer and sue you, right?
And you can give him $500 to fix that pin on the door, but he could turn around the next day and hit you with that lawsuit.
Yeah.
And now you're out $500 and you have a claim.
Exactly. So the best thing to do is, man, it doesn't matter how big or how small, just report the claim, right?
Right.
But anyways, I mean, Sean, you're awesome. We really appreciate working with you
Yeah.
and working with Julie, and everything that you do for us is like it can't be put into words.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Ian, thank you so much. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Will,
Okay.
what did you think about that with Sean and Julie? What's up with that? What did you think about what they said?
I think that there is a market for everything,
Yeah.
and I think that their market, in my belief, and is why I believe in their product so much, is one of the best markets to help people, especially when they're starting off, and it pretty much puts them in a position to be able to establish their business. There's a misconception a lot of times about like risk retention, like, oh, you can't find loads or anything like that. To me, excuse my French, I think that's BS.
Yeah.
I've been able to connect a lot of truckers with people, with dispatchers. And for example, the other day I posted something like, I literally have a couple of truckers making $10,000 a week.
Yeah.
And they have Southwind, for example. And at first they were like, oh, I can't figure it out. I can't. And I connect them with dispatchers, and I'll tell them, bro, you have to, like, this whole trucking game is it's a whole body, and you have to put the arms around it, for example. So it's not just getting the insurance, getting the DOT, and then seeing how you get the loads. You have to connect with the right people. You have to find like somebody who actually knows what they're doing, and you have to segment your business. that guy went from like, man, I don't know if I could pay my insurance to making 10 G's a week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then that kind of eliminates that belief of like, oh, I can't get loads or anything. That's BS. You know what I mean? And I feel like this insurance is amazing, A-rated. They are able to they pay out faster than a lot of the biggest companies out there. Like you can't beat that, you know. So I'm a big believer in like believing in the product that I sell. If I can't believe it, if I don't believe in that product, there's no way I'm gonna sell that. Period. Yeah. You know. So I think that
you wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing you sold somebody some insurance policy is not gonna pay out their claim when they're out on the road. And they could lose their entire livelihood. If we sell them some crappy product. Right?
And not even just that, but like overall, like I like my piece, and I always talk about that. And I feel like being able to sell something that is actually a good product to somebody is important for you to keep your peace. So I always tell my clients that, like, hey, listen, like I'd rather not sell you this if you feel like I need you to feel good about this. Yeah. You know, and they realize that I'm not just trying to sell them BS. Like they need to feel good about it. They need to actually be able to make money and all that stuff. And when I see that they don't know what they're doing, I try to educate them in terms of like, hey, do this, call this person, connect them. And they have been able to be successful overall. So I think the product is amazing. There's a misconception with risk retention about, oh, I can't pick up loads. That's not true. There's hundreds of companies out there that work with risk retentions, and you're able to pick up loads and make just as much money, period. Yeah, so
for sure.
Yeah.
And with that segue, we have a special guest here, Connor O'Donohue. He is the manager at our Texas office. He definitely has a lot to say about this industry, so I'll let you and Connor talk about a little bit more about yourselves and that industry.
How you doing?
Good, brother.
Chilling?
Yeah.
Going on?
Just we're answering the calls, making sure everybody's taken care of at the moment. You know, just it's a nonstop game, but something we got to do to make sure these guys are taken care of.
Yeah. So Connor is our manager in Texas. He is pretty much like on top of a lot of when it comes to like the marketing aspect of it, but he's also an amazing sales rep. He does hundreds of thousands in premium every month.
We try.
Yeah. So overall, you want to introduce yourself? How did you get into trucking insurance?
Yeah.
What do you think of the industry, and how do you think we can help the truckers?
I mean, I came from a background of car business, so you know, I worked in what we call F&I, finance and insurance. I came from a perspective that almost always is like, you know, customer first. So there's a huge amount of respect that we do have for the logistics community. We do have an immense culture that we create in our office that specifically is with the mindset that things don't get done without this moving, and we help that move. Yeah. And so, you know, I think we play a vital role in that, but it's very insignificant to what these truckers do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And so, coming from that customer service aspect, you know, there's always the sales side of things, but we try to not look at it as sales. We try to look at it as service, service of providing the best products, giving the best advice. You know, I probably take more phone calls on a daily basis that are just kind of clarifying questions, answering things. And I think that's really important for our team to understand, and also for, you know, our community out there, that we do things a little differently. Yeah. I think in the situations that we would take on per se that are, how I would say, like, if in the event that somebody gives you a call, the avoidance of that call is way more important, that one singular person, than actually picking up and answering. And so I would definitely say that the opportunity to answer the phone, discuss whatever they may need. It may be a 5-minute or a 1-hour conversation, but those people are going to stick with you for the long haul, and that's what we try to express in our culture.
Yeah, that's important, bro, because you know how many times I've been able to kind of like switch a trucker from one agency to our agency simply because their agent doesn't pick up for them. Yeah. That's it. You know, like a lot of the times these, like, a trucker really has a need, you know, and it's important, like, not to just sell them and then you're like, all right, set it and forget it. It doesn't work, and it doesn't work in this industry. A lot of these guys, like, they don't understand what insurance is, and they buy the policy. They go out there, and then they're talking to a dispatcher. They're talking to a company, and they're like, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? And they honestly don't even know, you know. So that's why it's good to be aware of educating them and letting them know this is what you have. If there's something else that you need, which there's a possibility as you go out there and you try to get your contracts, to let us know and to keep that communication open. Because if you sell a policy to somebody and then they're trying to call you to upgrade and they can't do it, they just lost money.
Yep.
They won't be able to pay for your policy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the fact that you come from that background is important, because I've seen you implement it and kind of talk about it in the industry and in our agency specifically, where it is important. The customer service is one of the most important aspects of it. That's why we have the drivers at southwesternins.com, where, for example, like I might be busy, you know, and you send me a license and you need to add this driver. You don't have to wait for me. We have an entire department dedicated just to add drivers. You need a certificate. You don't have to wait for me as your agent. We have an entire certificates department that's able to send you a certificate right away. So that customer service part is amazing. Like I said, you know how many how many clients I got from agents who didn't just service them, man. Well, it's messed up.
And the thing is, it's a nice. You have to have a good accuracy, and it's speed and precision, right? If you can speed things up, but sometimes, you know, it's also important to make sure that we just cross every T, dot every I, because it is insurance. So we don't want to move too quickly, but we also want to make sure that we move efficiently. And so with that being said, you know, we do have people in place, like you're saying, that we drive that whole process a lot faster, so that things are not just waiting. I think it's more so of things just on a halt. And if we just get things sent so that they're processing, and I think that's like a big thing I would love to say is, like, things do take time to process, right? You know, these insurance companies are on a, you know, we talked about the underwriters. The underwriters definitely have a process that they follow, but also sometimes they need to ask a question or get something to be reviewed by higher ups. You know, there's a checks and balances system that they have, and that's what creates that process. And so as long as we get it out of our hands as quickly as possible, I think we can make sure that things are done very, very quickly. And I feel like that's the most important thing, is for us to process what we need. And that's why we have people in place to make sure if an email hits our email chain, we already know exactly what to do.
Okay. So tell me, so you come from that sales background, from that customer service background. What exactly did you do before?
So I worked in finance insurance. I would handle all their paperwork documentation. I would help set up loans, and obviously had relationships with loan underwriters. So it's just a perception of saying, instead of looking at loans and the associated products that are paired with that loan in order to protect it, we're now just looking at the actual products that are protecting these truckers. And my relationships have shifted from people who write loans, but to people who actually write the policy. Yeah.
So I think that's important, because that means you come from that knowledge of being able to, like, okay, I got this quote for AL, and you kind of pair that underwriter kind of like a loan officer away. And then you got this quote for cargo, and then this is another loan officer, for example, kind of comparing the two in a way, like comparing. So
and they want to compete for their business.
Of course, everybody wants to compete.
They want to compete, and we're very respectful in letting everybody have their opportunity. And I think the relationship is important, right? Because not everybody wants to hear, hey, I just got you this great quote. Hey, I've got something that's slightly better. You know, will you consider the risk? You know, we are going to look at it as a relationship standpoint from the underwriters, and I think our number one is definitely going to be MHC. You know, they were just here. You know, our relationship with them is you know, stupendous, and we really enjoy working with them. And they do process things very quickly. That's kind of part of what we do as a part of our, you know, our thought process, right? We're going to look for the best number, but sometimes it's worth paying a little bit more to go with the right insurance carrier. I think sometimes people deal with situations where they're looking at an insurance carrier for the best price, but they also need to understand how that insurance carrier operates and what they look for and how they look for things, because sometimes, you know, you might be in a particular operation where you're planning on growth and you want to add trucks, you want to add drivers. Some insurance companies won't allow for growth. They limit that. Some of them will say, hey, look, we're not going to have the ability of adding this to the policy. It's within 2 months of it being written. That will never come about. So the communication between the insured and the agent is super, super important, but that still comes down to asking the right questions. That's why we tell our agents, hey, look, you need to make sure you ask the right questions for the understanding of the operation and their goals. When we get into business with signing a policy for you, something that's super important is obviously making sure that you understand that we're business partners at that point. You know, I'm going to be with you for an entire year, helping you guide through your day-to-day operations if need be. Most people know what they're doing, but sometimes questions arise and concerns, and sometimes you just want some advice. And somebody who's hand in hand with you at all times, you know, we're definitely not a culture that signs the policy and hopes that we move forward and that's it. No, we expect a relationship to grow as renewals come about and everything like that.
You mentioned something important, which was like knowing where to place the truckers and knowing when it's the right policy for them, right? I think that's important because necessarily it's not always about price. You might find a great price, right? But then that agent placed you with a company that doesn't allow growth, like how you mentioned. So there's companies out there that only allow you to add one truck.
Or they review the entire risk as a whole.
Exactly.
So then if you get into that situation, you could think, oh, I was paying, let's just say $15,000 for one truck, and I had cargo and physical damage included in that, and that's what I'm paying. So if I end up adding another truck, it goes to 30. Sometimes that's not the case with certain carriers. Sometimes they're going to review the whole risk and say, actually, because of the increased risk, we're going to look at it as $16,000 annually. And so that's all part of it. And I think Progressive does that kind of often because it is a system. It's not somebody just reviewing it. But that's why asking the right questions and making sure we're on the same page with our insureds is really, really important.
Yeah, and the truckers, they need to know how to ask that question. Like, for example, if I was a trucker, knowing what I know, one thing that I will ask is, like, who do you work with, right? They do ask that a lot, but you have to kind of go down and be more specific of, like, do you only work with Geico, Progressive, and Coverwell, for example? If you're dealing with an agent who only works with those 3 carriers, most likely is, like, not throw any shade or anything like that, but they're kind of limited in being able to sell you a policy that could benefit you in the long run. And then you always fall into that, I might get canceled 2 weeks later because I got miswrote. Like we spoke in the beginning
There's
of the podcast.
There's a lot of room for human error in those processes.
Exactly. So this is why it's to us, it's beautiful working with a company like MHC because we're able to speak to another human being directly. And before we actually give you the price, we already know that this is the price. Nothing's going to change. A lot of the times when things change is because the guy had an unreported unit or something like that. And now you got canceled, right? Because we know that's not right in the industry, right? So things like that. But you bring up that I love stressing that, man. And you have to stress that in the fact that you have to deal with people who know what they're doing. It's not always about price. I've been able to, like, I've been in situations where I tell somebody, like, hey, this is the price. Bro, I already got a quote, $3,000 cheaper. I'm like, how much is the physical damage? Oh, it's $150,000. How much is the cargo? $250,000. And $1 million auto liability. I'm like, I don't know, man.
We see numbers all day, and I think that's where I think a lot of the trust. And I'll be honest, that's why I chose to work with Southwestern Insurance, because I couldn't have an opportunity. Like, I did very well in the business that I did before, and to make the transition was very, it's very impactful to changes in your life. And so when we made the transition and we decided to take something that's a little bit more of a partnership necessarily than working for an employer, it's been very important to pick the right person you do that with. And so I think the insureds need to do the same thing and look at, like, okay, who's the experienced, person in the situation and who has the markets. And you're going to notice that when you talk to any one of our agents, they're going to be able to answer questions and direct you with multiple different facets of the industry. And I think that's really beneficial for why you should work with Southwestern. And part of that is also our partnership with MHC, that they're just as knowledgeable. And I think it just plays into a really good system. And we have all the markets. I mean, we don't have any issues with pairing anybody with a specific operation with any specific insurance carrier. But it does take, like I said, when you're saying putting in a cover whale and putting in a progressive, that's quick and easy, but sometimes actually having somebody to put a view on your operation can not only save you a ton of money, but also save you a lot of headache in the future.
Yeah. That, like you said, like not dealing with an underwriter opens it up for human error. So then you're kind of like giving all your trust to the agent.
And their knowledge.
So this is why I say it's not always about price. I have seen horrible situations of people who go for price
Yep.
And then they end up losing that down payment, losing that policy, and then now if they want to stay in business, they have to buy a whole nother policy and they have to come up with a whole nother down payment. And I had a situation like that. I had a guy, he was like, I don't know, Will, man, like this guy gave me $13,000 and it was with a specific carrier, and I was like, bro, I ran the same quote with that carrier and I made sure that everything was perfect. I called in and I verified with the carrier that price that agent is giving you is incorrect. This is the right price.
Based on their operation, there could be slight changes in what's clicked or what's offered that could easily change the quote. And and that stuff gets reviewed after the fact.
It does get reviewed.
In the event that you may say, hey, look, the price that they gave me is lower up front, but guess what? I've had it multiple times. I'm sure you have too.
All the time.
I put something in and the operation gets reviewed and we were at a certain price and they notify us, hey, you know, they are also including these operations. And sometimes, you know, it's something you're doing new and we got to update the insurance company. But also the other time it's the insurance company notices that the agent put something incorrectly at the other and that's why it was lower. And guess what? The price that I actually gave you is the correct based on the actual operation.
Exactly.
And that's why I say the agent's experience is super important in that.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have great leaders at our company. Ian and Orlando, you know, they've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
And as a whole, having somebody like that as a resource to answer and provide us a direction on aspects that maybe we're not too unsure of, but we definitely know how to get the answer and make sure that we're accurate with what we're doing.
For sure. Brother, I think you are an expert in your field. I commend you.
Appreciate it.
You're doing your thing. I see what you're doing with your team. I give you your props and give you your flowers.
Hey, it always goes equal right back, brother. I really appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it.
So, I mean, we want to continue pushing out this content for people.
Yeah. So
we can educate them and kind of like introduce them to a lot of our staff, a lot of the people that we work with, a lot of our partners.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a regular thing. So please like and subscribe so you can be kept up to date with all the people that we're bringing on board. You can keep educating yourself. You'll be able to listen to this while you're driving, while you're on the road, while you're in the office taking a break. So we're going to put out on all platforms. That way that you could stay up to date and knowledgeable about all the products that are coming out in the insurance trucking space.
All right.
So,
sounds good, man.
All right, guys.
That was amazing. I think we're good. And then Southwestern Insurance.
Yeah.
Look us up
for all your truck insurance needs.
There you go.
All right. Take care, guys.